This shiny legendary tutorial is partnered with Advanced GG, but more on that later in the video. Hey everyone, today I'm going to be teaching you how to get a guaranteed shiny Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 versions of Fire Red and Leaf Green. I'm going to be using RNG manipulation, and this is going to be a tutorial for all static encounters. These are all of the one-time legendaries like the birds and Mewtwo, but it's also Pokemon that you get as gifts, something like the Game Corner Pokemon, the Eevee, the fossils that you can revive. Anything that it is like a thing that an NPC gives you or a standing Pokemon that you then talk to. This is what this tutorial is for. On top of that, this will not work for trade Pokemon. So if you're talking about the Mr. Mime or whatever, it will not work for that Mr. Mime. They have set IVs and natures. Okay, with that preamble out of the way, let's cover the things you need to set up in-game first. If you are catching the wild Pokemon, as in it is not a gift or from the Game Corner or something, you should have a Master Ball. A Master Ball will make it much easier to calibrate. The way this process works is that we catch the Pokemon if it's not shiny or if it's not what we want, and then we check the stats to see how far off we were. Master Ball makes that so easy. Obviously, you don't need this for Game Corner Pokemon or whatever. On top of that, you should have some rare candies. You really only need like 3 to 5 or something like that. This will help you with lower level Pokemon whose stats are not going to be as easy to tell when they are low level, basically. This is mostly going to be useful for like the Abra in the Game Corner, but I'm sure there's others that it will be helpful with as well. Okay. In addition to that, I'm going to be setting the options of sound and button mode to help and mono. This is a very basic RNG manipulation tutorial. You can technically use the other settings, but right now in this tutorial, I'm going to be using mono and help, as that's all that Fire Red has available to it for now in terms of the seeds, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Lastly, it might sound obvious, but save in front of the Pokemon that you want to capture. So I'm going to be saving in front of Zapdos here. Every single static encounter has slight differences, and I will cover what they are, but for the most part, you'll be able to follow the exact process that I do for Zapdos. Okay, that's all we're going to need in-game. Now, out of game, we're going to need to go to a few different websites. So you could do this on your phone if you wanted to. I'm just recording in a capture card because it looks nicer, but all you need is a phone and your Switch. Okay. The first website we need to go to is EonTimer. I'll link this in the pinned comment. So Das Ampharos' EonTimer web version. What we're going to want to do is click the Custom tab. In addition to that, we're going to click this Settings cog here, and we want to click the Timer tab within the Settings cog. We want to make sure our console is selected to GBA. I know we are on the Switch. Trust me, you want it set to GBA. After that, we want to just delete whatever we have here. Any of these calibrations, we just want to make sure that they're deleted. Okay, the first one we're going to set to milliseconds. We're going to set it like that, and we're going to leave it blank. Then we're going to hit plus twice, 1, 2, and as you see, we can scroll, and we will have more than one option here. So the first one, leave at milliseconds. The second one, set to advances. The third one, also set to advances. Now we're going to want to set the third one to 600. This is how many frames you're going to spend in the overworld. And frames are, it's 1/60th of a second in this game. And so want to spend about 600 of them in the overworld, and we're never going to change this value. We're never going to calibrate this value. Okay, that's all we need for EonTimer. Let's move over to the other web app that we're going to need. The second website we want to go to is the 10 lines, and we want to be in the Calibration tab. The URL that I provide will link directly to this tab, but just in case it doesn't for whatever reason, we are not using Searcher or Initial Seed. Those are really only for 5 IV perfect Pokemon that for competitive play. We're just doing a quick shiny here. For game, you want to select Switch Fire Red or Switch Leaf Green. These are the same for every language except Japanese. So Japanese is not supported by the 10 lines right now. It will be in the future, but as of right now, it's not. Sorry, people who are playing on those games. I'm going to select Switch Fire Red because that's what I'm playing on. For sound, as I said earlier, I'm going to be doing mono, and then button mode, I'm going to be doing help. These are the only settings supported for Switch Fire Red right now because that's all that I have farmed, but I farmed a lot of seeds for it. The Leaf Green version, however, does have the other settings available at the moment. Seed button, we're going to do A. This is the button that you push and hold on the title screen to confirm what seed that you've gotten. Extra button, we want to leave as none. Right now, we think that this does nothing on the Switch versions, but it's a function that remains for the GBA versions. And these caused a lot of confusion in my starter video, so we have renamed them from A button and held button to seed button and extra button. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarification. For console, pick whether you're playing on the Switch 1 or 2. I'm playing on the Switch 2. The process is really no different. All it's doing is it's changing the timing for when each seed is. So if you look here, the seed is got 30,592. If we switch it to the Switch 1, it'll be a different value. That's all this does. We can leave the seed blank here, and then seed plus minus, we can change to 50. This is how many seeds up and down from our target. So that's what you could visualize this with the show seed button. These are all the seeds in order as they would appear. Minimum advances, we're going to set to 1,000, and maximum we're going to set to 5,000. This is just how many RNG advances occur. And we're going to be doing anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000. Required overworld frames. This is how many frames that you are waiting in the overworld. And this is the value that we put into EonTimer at 600 that we pretty much won't ever change. For the most part, this is going to be fine at 600 for basically every Pokemon. This will only have to change for Pokemon that have very, very long animations, something like Deoxys. And I'll talk about that more when I talk about when you press A on a Pokemon. But for now, you can leave it at 600 and that'll be fine. Trainer ID, input yours in, mine's 12,500, and put your secret ID in. If you don't know what your secret ID is, there's 3 ways to get it. One is RNG Manip a Shiny Starter at the start of the game. I've got a video on that if you want to check it out. The second way, I'll make a short on it probably this week when I release this video at some point, that's going to basically talk about if you find any shiny through full odds, you can then calculate your secret ID from that shiny. And then the last way would be to use glitches like arbitrary code execution. You can find tutorials on that on my friend Papa Hefe's channel. Okay, for the method, we're going to leave it to static 1. For the category, we're going to select, and this is all of the types of Pokemon that are available for this tutorial, basically. So it's starters, fossils, gifts, game corners, stationary. This is like Hypno and Snorlax. And then it's also, we have legendaries, events, which is where you would find Deoxys and Ho and Lugia. They're not events anymore, I guess, but you get the point. And then roamers. I would suggest not doing roamers at the moment. They're a little bit harder than all the other ones because they are bugged. So this tutorial probably won't be as useful for them. That being said, I am going to be doing legendaries, and I'm going to be doing Zapdos. Shininess, we're going to set this to star/square. If you star versus square is a distinction that only matters for Sword and Shield. So if you want it to just be shiny, you don't care about what it looks like in Sword and Shield with the star animation or the square animation, do star/square. That'll give you both. And our submit button won't work. If that happens and there's a submit button error, just refresh the game. The only thing that you'll have to change is the seed plus and minus again. I'll set that back to 50. And you'll also have to rechange what Pokemon that you're playing on. It resets it back to Bulbasaur. So we're going to go back to Legends and back to Zapdos and reset the shininess as well. And now it'll work. And we'll get all the shiny potentials here for us. So we can see there's a ton of different shinies. I am going to be aiming for this one. This is the same frame that I used for my starter, not in the video, but on the stream one. Okay, and so now what we need to do is set up EonTimer. So continue screen frames. It's a bit small. I'll be okay with leaving it at 425, but just know you might have to end up changing this. Advances, 1625. So what is the difference between these two things? What is advances and what is continue screen frames? The issue is that the RNG, the random number generator, moves at 2 different rates. In the overworld, like where I am now, it runs at basically 120 frames per second. It's a bit simplified. It doesn't do that. It runs at 60 frames per second, but every frame it goes 2 instead of 1. And we don't want to be adjusting based off of that. So luckily, in the continue screen, which is where the save file select and the new game option are, it goes 1 by 1. So we're going to do all of our waiting on the continue screen. And then we're going to adjust all of our stuff on the continue screen, and we're never going to touch the overworld frames. So this would be what we put into the second slot on EonTimer. Advances is how many total RNG advances we will be waiting. So our overworld frames are 600. To find out how many RNG advances that's consuming, you'd multiply that by 2. So that's 1200 plus 425, which is our continue screen frames, gets us to 1625, which is how many total RNG advances we're waiting. So the first thing we need to do here is put the seed in. So I'm going to copy this seed value. So we're going to copy that. You can just right click, copy it. And we're going to put that into EonTimer. EonTimer is now in the lower right-hand corner of my screen, but I'll bring back up the big menu. So in EonTimer, I'm going to scroll to milliseconds. I'm going to put 29771. For advances, we go back to the 10 lines. Advances is what we're going to do for continue screen frames. So we're going to copy that. put that into the second section of EonTimer, right there. And then for this third section, as I said previously, we're going to leave that at 600. Now, there are things that you can do. If you want to give yourself more time on the continue screen, you can give yourself less overworld advances. So let's say I thought to myself, I don't like that there's only 425 here. I think that that's too short. What you could do is go to required overworld frames and shrink this. So if I set this to, if I set required overworld frames to like 450, we can go down now, and we can see the continue screen frames is now 725. So this is good for if the Pokemon has a very short animation and you want to give yourself some time for adjustments and you'd rather wait on the continue screen long. So you could do that. If your Pokemon has a really long animation in the overworld, you're going to have to bump this up to 1200 or something like that. You might even need to do more. And as you can see, that frame here, this modest one, is not going to be possible to hit for my Deoxys if I wanted to go for Deoxys because its animation is so freaking long. I'm going to leave it at 600 for now. You're going to be able to adjust that as needed. EonTimer's set up. 10 lines is set up. We're about ready to go. The only thing that I want to talk about now is when do you push A on a Pokemon? It sounds like it might be obvious. It's the last box, right? Talk to Zapdos, wait here, and then when the timer beeps, you hit A to start the battle. This is not always the case. So I've compiled the list here. It's on my website, retailrng.com. And this tells you when you have to press A for every single target in the entire game. And as you can see, the legendary birds is not when you would expect. It's not the final dialogue box. For some reason, it is when you first press A to speak to them. So it says press A in front of it. So if I go to Zapdos here, and I hit A, the Zapdos is already generated at this point. Whether or not you got a shiny, it's already determined now because it's pressing A in front of it, not on this text box. And so you could reference this list here. So you can see for Deoxys, it's press A in front of the red triangle. Ho-Oh is pressing up because there's no A press, right? So just reference this list. I'll link to this website in the description as well. That should be everything that we need to cover in terms of what you need to do to set up for the RNG manip, so we can actually start the attempt now. As I said at the start of the video, I'm now partnered with Advanced GG. They sent me a bunch of their products to try, and I actually really liked it. So if you want to help me out and support this partnership, you can go to my store page. But I wouldn't be showing you guys something if I didn't actually like it, and the truth is, I've been drinking this instead of coffee pretty much every day for like a month and a half since they sent it to me, because I genuinely like it. It's really sweet without having any sugar, and I find that the caffeine levels are much better for what I need anyway. And coffee, I had like much worse self-control with. I would drink like 2 or 3 cups of coffee in a day. I would spike really bad. With this stuff, I do 2 scoops, and I'm good for the whole day. I would show you the other energy flavor that I had, which was mango, which was really, really good. But I drank all of it. And I would show you the hydration flavor, but my wife drank all of that. And the hydration stuff is also just like something that you could add to your water to give it more flavor, but there's no caffeine or anything like that. They're really, really delicious. If you want to support me in this partnership, you can go to my store page. I'll have it on screen now and linked in the description and the pinned comment. So thank you guys for watching and enjoy the rest of the tutorial. So to start our attempt, let's go over the procedure. We're going to close the Fire Red version. And then the way that you do the game's boot sequence is a bit strange. I'll cover it again in case people have not watched the Shiny Starter tutorial. We're going to launch the game, and then we're going to immediately hit home. It's going to reboot us into the home menu here. Now, on the Switch 1 versions of the game, you have to wait a little bit. If you hit it too quickly, it'll cancel the launch, so you just have to wait. If you see the Switch logo pop up, like it says Nintendo Switch in the corner, you'll probably see it when you load the emulator. That's okay. You just don't want to see any text from the actual like game of Fire Red. You don't want to see like the copyright screen or whatever. That's too late. Now, once we're here, we're ready to start our attempts. Go back to the 10 lines. Now, in the 10 lines, we're going to undo the star and square thing here. And then we're going to change nothing else. Excuse me. There is one more thing that we're going to do. Our seed here, we're going to be aiming for this seed. This is the milliseconds for the seed, but this is the actual seed that those milliseconds will give us. We're going to copy that seed, and we're going to go all the way up to here in the target seed box, delete that, and then paste our seed, and you'll see it will show up here. We're then going to change our seed plus minus to 20. 50, it's way too big usually, so we'll change it to 20 for now. At this point, we are now officially ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start EonTimer at the same time as hitting A to launch the game. And then we're going to wait for the intro to play out in its entirety. I like to do this by hitting the spacebar on EonTimer and hitting the A button on the same time as my controller. So you can see here, 1, 2, 3, go. And that's how I like to launch the game. It makes it pretty easy, I think. And now we just wait. I'm going to let the whole intro play out. You're going to watch this boot sequence exactly once from me, and then I'll start cutting it because you should understand how to do the boot sequence. When this first timer finishes counting down, we're going to press and hold the A button at the title screen because in 10 lines, that's what our seed button is. Here we go. So I'm pressing and I'm holding A. We're going to wait here when this finishes. We're going to continue. I'm going to hit B here. I'm going to bring up the start menu immediately. Bringing up the start menu prevents any moving NPCs from messing with you. I like to close the start menu on the 5th beep and then talk to receive the Pokemon on the final beep. As you can see, we didn't get a shiny, and it's okay. You should not expect to get a shiny your very first attempt. And this is why I suggested you have a Master Ball with you, because it's going to be a pain to catch it if you don't. Hopefully this boot sequence was clear enough for all of y'all. And then when we catch this, we're going to figure out like kind of where relatively we landed in said boot sequence. So I'm going to scroll down here. And we're going to take a look at Zapdos' stats to see where we got. Pokemon. We have a calm Zapdos. So we're going to put in the nature. Got that right there. The IVs we're going to input. And if Pokemon has a gender, you should input the gender as well. IV calculator, so we're level 50. Input the level first. And then we're going to input all the stats. 90, 104, 143, 118, 117. Here we go. And now we can hit submit. And we should get probably only one result. You can get more sometimes. If your Pokemon is a bit of a low level. And so what do you do if you get more than one result? Well, you just level the Pokemon up, and that's why I suggest that you have rare candies. Zapdos and most of the legendaries, and to be honest, if a Pokemon is like above level 20, you probably don't need to do this, but I'm going to show it anyway, just in case you're going for a particularly low level gift Pokemon. Going to put a rare candy on your Pokemon. Get another level, and in the IV calculator, add another row, and then type the new level, 51, and then type the new stats. You want to make sure you don't do this with battles if you can avoid it. 46, 121, 119. And then you can hit submit again. And as you can see, nothing here changed because I didn't have more than one result, but that's fine. So you can see continue screen frames. We hit 254. That means we were very, very early. So what I'm going to do is copy this, and then into EonTimer. I'm going to put this in the second one where it says 425. We're going to put hit here. And then in addition to that, in 10 lines, you could see our milliseconds were plus 17. That means we were 17 milliseconds later than we wanted to be. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to also put it into EonTimer. So we're going to put it in the hit box for the milliseconds box. You can see. So continue screen frames is what we're adjusting, and the seed is what we're adjusting. We are never, ever, ever adjusting this value here. Okay? And then you can click the update button. At this point, we're just going to attempt it again. Be right away. Bring up the start menu. I mentioned this briefly, but wandering NPCs can affect the RNG. And bring up the start menu prevents wandering NPCs from moving. So that's why you always want to bring it up if you can. We didn't get it again. It's totally fine. The range of error is pretty wide for a human being. So this will take a couple of attempts. All right. And we're just going to do the exact same thing as we did last time. We're going to go into 10 lines, and we're going to do an adjustment. Figure out what Zapdos we hit. Nature is lax. 50, 150, 99, 106, 131, 98, 112. Submit. I have found no results. This is concerning. So the first thing I do when I find no results is I double check my stats. So lax nature, 50, 150, 99, 106, 131, 98, 112. I input everything correctly. Nature is lax. That's correct as well. What can we do here? What happened? There's a couple of things. First of all, we could increase or decrease our minimum advances and maximum advances. So I'll decrease this and hit submit. We got nothing. Seed plus minus 20. Last time we were 1 late. We were this seed. We could have been a little bit, we could be more than 2 early. So this is something that's potentially true. If I'm aiming for a very, very low seed, so 9-2-D4, there's only 2 seeds earlier than this that I have recorded into the 10 lines. There is potentially a seed even earlier than D4-DE that I don't have. So this just might be a case of a missing seed. What I can do is increase this by 25, and I can increase this to 10,000. Hit submit. I'm getting nothing. That's okay. This is something that can happen if you're aiming for one of the first 5 to 10 seeds, I would say. Totally fine. What we're going to do is just redo our attempt. Hopefully we don't hit something so early. We have a result. So you can see we were about 2 seeds early, which confirms my suspicion. We were probably previously about 3 seeds early. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to input this into EonTimer. We're going to do that immediately. So that means I'm skewing a little too early on my seeds. I'm going to put this in here as my hit, and I'm going to click update. That'll change it. We'll be plus 16 milliseconds now. As you can see, and again, if you're having trouble visualizing the seeds, like you can click expand seed list here, but like this seed is 2 seeds earlier than this. The reason I got no results on my second attempt was probably because I was 3 seeds earlier and I don't have that seed recorded down for the 10 lines. At this point, we are reasonably calibrated, as in we shouldn't ever be more than a couple of advances or a couple of seeds off of our target, like 1 to 2 to even 5 because of some switch inconsistency stuff. Genuinely, that's how close we should be at this point. So the procedure from here on out is to do an attempt, catch the Pokemon, see how far off you are. If you're more than 2 frames or 2 seeds off, I would adjust, or like 30 milliseconds on your seed off, I would adjust. If you are less than that, I wouldn't adjust unless you hit the same targets like 5, 6 times consecutively. Because 1 to 2 advances or 30 to 16 to 40 milliseconds is pretty much human error or switch boot time error, so you can't do much to calibrate it out. With that said, let's start the attempts. Here we go. I'm pretty much just going to be cutting only to when I get the successful attempt at this point. So we'll see. And there we have it, a shiny Zapdos. Now, as usual, people could say, oh, you just soft reset for this. I've been recording since the second attempt for 17 minutes, my OBS says. It's 10:32. So the only other way to prove that it's not random is I'll type the stats into 10 lines, and you'll see it will say continue scream advances 4, 2, 5. But it's pretty simple. It's basically the same RNG manip as the starter without the TID SID figuring out part. You don't have to do that, luckily. I mean, you just have to do a few adjustments. I ended up adjusting my seed once more to being plus 30, I believe. As you can see, it was a modest nature. My last one was modest as well. And I also ended up adjusting my frames. I kept skewing to be like 5 or 6 frames late or something like that. So I ended up adjusting that as well. But it's, it wasn't much more than that. 157, 106, 120. We hit submit. We'll see. There it is. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for y'all. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below or join my Discord. And stay tuned for the wild RNG tutorial. I'm actually going to put a poll up on that on my channel's posts page to see if you guys want to see a hand cam version of that showing only mobile tools. So thank you all for watching. See you later. Bye.